The Connection Show. Inspiring hope, health, healing. Connecting the dots of your story and transforming your life. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops. Live with Jill Reynolds.
The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me today is Bryan Rutberg. Welcome, Bryan, to the show.
It's so good to be here with you. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, we are honored that you would join us, and we can't wait, everyone, so that you could learn a little bit more about Bryan and his life. Before we begin, though, we'd love to have a word for one of our sponsors, Holy Hydrogen. Their machine is amazing. It's an invention that helps regenerate cells within your body and heal you from things like degenerative arthritis, lupus, anything that has to do with connective tissue. Hydrogen is needed in our body. So listen to this message. When you order this, make sure you use the promo code Braveheart to get $100 off.
Hydrogen is used by health professionals as a powerful antioxidant and the number one tool to fight inflammation. Studies show therapeutic potential in cancer, diabetes, digestive, and heart issues, and essentially every organ and system in the body. This is not medical
heart
advice,
issues,
because I'm not
and essentially
doctor.
every
But if
organ
you
and
have any
system in
health
the body.
concerns, I strongly
This is not med and heart
recommend
issues,
learning about
because I'm not
hydrogen.
essentially every
Get
organ and
educated
system in the
on
body.
concerns, I strongly
This is not med and heart
recommend
issues.
the best hydrogen generator known to man. Use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Because hydrogen is the smallest molecule in existence, it can pass through the cell membrane and even the blood-brain barrier to clear out inflammation and free radical damage where other antioxidants just can't get to. Visit holyhydrogen.com to see the latest technology that elevates your immune system and fights inflammation. Search their research library to see if hydrogen has a track record for helping a health concern you're dealing with. Make sure to use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Remember, holyhydrogen.com.
Well, as you can see, hydrogen water is an amazing invention, and being able to breathe it through your nostrils while you're just on your computer will rejuvenate your health. So make sure you use that promo code Braveheart today. Well, Bryan, we want to just jump right in and give you a lot of time to share so that the guests today will get to know you a little bit better and find out how little Bryan growing up and going through grammar school and junior high and high school led you to the amazing man that you are today. So could you take us on a journey of little Bryan?
You're very kind. Little Bryan at the very early part, like elementary school age, was a bit of a geek. You could argue there's still a lot of that in me, but it's funny how once you start following your professional life, you can turn all the stuff that makes you geeky and singled out as a kid actually becomes an area of expertise and a benefit as you grow up. I was
so let's pause there.
Bookworm.
Let's pause there for 1 second. So when you hear the word geek today, you think of that as technology, and so taking you back, we didn't have the technology. So how were you geeky as a little boy?
Yeah, I was the kid who was more comfortable in the library or sitting under a tree at recess reading than I was actually getting out and getting into the social structure of elementary school, such as social structures in elementary school were. Tended to be in the classes with higher performers, tended to get some number of special opportunities, which later became more accepted. There's AP classes and some people take them, but being singled out as the smart kid, which is also in my case to say sort of the smart ass, it's not always a comfortable place to be, and I realize that there's no humility coming through with this, but when you're not accepted by the general crowd, you have a certain amount of when you're that young, a certain amount of imposter syndrome, a certain amount of feeling like you'll never fit in. And so it was, without saying I had a tortured childhood, because I did not, there was certainly a part of me that reached a realization as I moved from elementary school towards junior high, middle school, that realized I was more inside than I was given the opportunity to demonstrate externally with a group of people who had grown up with me. And a great benefit in my life in hindsight was my dad was a teacher and taught in not the school district near our home, but in a neighboring school district. And I was given the opportunity by my folks as I reached the end of 8th grade to start attending high school in my dad's district. Okay. And suddenly here's 4 elementary schools feeding into this one high school. So everybody at most knew a quarter of the kids, and everybody, had the opportunity to just assume, oh, he's someone I didn't know before. So all of a sudden I slipstreamed into the main thrust of high school and was able to show off who I really was or who I had become over the years. And I developed confidence. I developed the ability to connect with people better. And that's sort of the formative stuff. I ended up going to a college that I almost certainly wouldn't have known much about or considered had I not gone to that particular high school and had a chance to have a couple of really influential teachers take me under their wing and kind of walk me through what they saw was possible for me. And that's the young Bryan.
So were you on the debate team and on the school newspaper and all that kind of stuff, the educational
Some of those things, yes. I was more the student government.
Okay.
Not debate per se, but artistic interpretation. I had a partner and we would do little scenes together. What is it called? Dramatic interpretation, I think it's called. Yeah. We would do, but public speaking related stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I can see.
Demonstrating
I can see
emotion, getting an audience. Yeah, right. It's very natural knowing you as you know me and through the groups that you know me from. Ended up being selected to go to California's Boys State, which was something I earned through a speaking and writing competition. So all of the things that it turns out I've become professionally and the things that have led me through a pretty satisfying career, they started to come onto display as a high schooler. I was occasionally in a school play. I never had the patience for debate because it really turns out to be so detail-oriented. All those kids carrying around shoe boxes full of 3x5 or 4x6 cards. It was too structured for me. There was no, art to it.
Yeah, I can see you artsy. So going back a step, so what I love, I went to a conference years ago in the 80s, Bryan, and it was the first codependence type of conference with the who's who in the recovery world. And the one topic that I learned at that event really fascinated me, and it was the topic of codependency in the looking good family. It looks good, it smells good, but where's the skeletons in the closet? So, growing up in a family that looked really good, did your family of origin, going back to great-grandma, grandma, mom, dad, and your life, have any skeletons that you want to reveal? Or was it, because there's always something behind closed doors: alcoholism, drug addiction, sexual abuse, divorce, gambling, blah, 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 blah. We've all lived something in our lives.
It's funny, and this is part of why I consider myself blessed. Of all the things you ticked off there, the ones that I think of as, the big ones, no. My great-grandparents were the immigrant generation. My grandparents were all born in North America. I have learned as an adult that there may have been one grandfather had a little trouble keeping it in his pants around women who weren't his wife, and another grandfather was just a difficult man. Maybe there was an element of some verbal abuse toward my grandmother and his two kids, my mom and my uncle. High expectations and a difficult person to please. But that feels like it might leave, the kinds of scars that get worked out if someone's diligent about it, more so than the really long-lasting scars.
Yeah.
My mother still likes to play poker, but in her middle 80s, she doesn't do it as much anymore, but never anything that you would call a gambling problem.
Yeah.
I don't know about an idyllic or perfect childhood, but I had a pretty good childhood. I felt like I was surrounded by people who loved me, all despite some of the dalliances that I now understand my paternal grandfather was prone to. My grandparents stayed married through, till death did they part, and my folks have recently celebrated 64 years of their marriage, and to the best of my knowledge, it's been a pretty functional marriage.
Now, did you go through?
So no, I don't. Not big skeletons, at
yeah.
least.
Not that they're coming out of the closets. How about bullying? Did you go through bullying when you felt like you were the little geeky kids in grammar school? Did kids bully you?
Yeah, that's. Thank you for raising that, because it's probably the kind of thing that I've cut off that part of the brain. But yeah, there was a certain amount of teasing. Rutberg, 2 syllables, that hard T at the end of the first one. There was at least one incident that I can remember. I remember the name less than the incident, but Bryan Wetpants. So yeah, I mean, things like that would come up, or just a general sense of, it's not enough to know that you don't quite fit in. It's another thing to have someone tell you you don't fit in. Mm-hmm. So there was, some elements of that, and no doubt, if we did, get me lying down on the couch and talking, there would be elements of, one of the reasons that I take it so seriously to help people make connections with others, and why I've been good across my career and my personal life at making strong interpersonal connections, is because I didn't do that, and I probably missed that at a serious level as a really young person. But I never felt like I had to work for my parents' love or approval. I think I confounded them at times, but I don't feel like they ever thought wished that I was anything different than what I was.
Well, peer connections as a child is very impactful for the rest of your life. And, I, again, spent some time in treatment for eating disorders, and there were quite a few young people, 17, 18 to the 20s, in treatment, and their primary trauma that led to eating disorders, actually binge eating or anorexia or whatever, stemmed from their bullying as a child, that it still was a part of their identity, and they really were still burdened by it. And so many times I think we go through life thinking that those things didn't or don't impact us, until something knocks us over the head and we're reminded, oh, do I really belong? Do I really fit in?
And my wife and I will talk occasionally about the things that we think make us successful, or generally are the things that it all worked out, no matter how much I may have agonized over something, or lost sleep over it, or stayed up late trying to get that last detail nailed. There's an element of working to please and always doubting if what you're doing is enough. And no doubt some of that comes from there. it also, and so there's the positive spin on it, right? You work your butt off because you always are a little afraid you're going to be less than, or someone's going to look at your work and scoff at it instead of saying, oh, this is a great at least start. And people are much kinder than we in our minds give them credit for. And people are kinder to us than we are to ourselves. It's also what I think made me feel less well equipped when, as an adult and a parent, our daughter started going through some of the things that you just ticked off, not the food stuff, but some amount of, well, a classic adolescent presentation of obsessive compulsive disorder, which when stripped away revealed an even bigger, hairier, uglier anxiety disorder that didn't present as OCD, but was just generalized anxiety. And I ended up learning, in a way, a whole new language, a whole new sort of philosophical or emotional language, because it was what was helping her. And again, my wife and I looked at each other as we were learning these things in our middle 40s or so, and think, where has this been all my life? Why didn't I know this when I was in my 20s? I'm doing cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy. Things that are fantastic for mental health, even if you've got your act together. Things that help you with just the day-to-day. You don't need to have anxiety or a proclivity to self-harm or an eating disorder to benefit from these things. How is it we're not teaching these things in schools or in Sunday schools? Or
Right.
These are coping skills that are absolutely, they make for happier, more well-adjusted people who are able to handle themselves better and thus handle others better as well.
And a lot of people too, Bryan, thank you for your transparency in that, and I'm grateful your daughter's on the road to recovery, because with obsessive compulsive anxiety disorders, one modality of therapy that's very effective is exposure therapy, where they're exposed to the different elements of what it is they're being compulsive on. And one girl in particular had such severe abuse with urine that she literally couldn't look at a glass that had like apple juice in it without thinking it was urine.
Wow.
And so she had to do exposure therapy every day, where they slowly put out a glass of apple juice and let her look at it and smell it and realize that it's okay, this is safe. And and it's exposure therapy is very profound to help recover from this disorder.
It is. We experienced that ourselves, Jill. I mean, before we could or did put a name to the obsessive compulsive disorder, our daughter, when we would go out for pizza, say, would scrape the toppings off of the pizza and eat them. And if she did get to the crust, it would be fork and knife, because the bottom of the pizza, whatever flour had been put on the bottom of the dough, or the different pizza places that will use like cornmeal or something like that, she couldn't stand that feeling. She also had an obsession around the smell and feel of metal, particularly coins. And one of her exposure therapies was we would mix up some coins into a container of flour, and she would work up her nerve and reach in to the flour and dig around, find a coin and pull it out. So several things together that really triggered her. Gradually, she began to do it. Instead of laying out her clothes at night before she went to bed and literally obsessing over, have I laid the clothes out in a way that there are no creases, no folds, everything is flat and perfect. Yeah. Her therapist had her do that. If it makes you comfortable, do that. And then fold a sleeve in.
Yeah,
and then go to sleep.
And it really does work.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, it is. And going back, what's coming to me right now, Bryan, if we could go back to you for a moment, what's coming to me, because I had a girlfriend whose daughter was like this, so I'm referring back to you. When you would sit under that tree reading for hours at a time and you were being bullied, have you connected the dots yet? And you may not. Sometimes on my show, people will go, wow, I never thought about that. Thank you, Jill, for helping me. Have you connected the dots with that little boy? I'm just thinking of little Bryan in my mind, thinking of you sitting under the tree alone, reading that book, and at the same time going to school being bullied. Do you feel like the books were your escape into a dream world of being put into a world of being connected with a different dimension in reality to feel like you belonged?
I wish I could come up with exactly the words you used. Wow, Jill, I never thought of it. But following James and the Giant Peach and that adventure, or Milo in the Phantom toll booth. I mean, yeah, it was easy. Or reading the biographies of young Abe Lincoln or young Tom Edison. It clearly, I could see myself in these small H heroic roles and imagine these things happening to me, the adventures I could have, the fantasy world I could live in. And that made up a certain amount, especially in my really younger years, of my play, right? When I think a kid who's going to be putting a basketball in a hoop in the driveway is going to imagine him or herself as some sports star that's relevant at the current moment. But there were also these games that didn't involve a ball or a bat or equipment, and just racing around the neighborhood and making up stories about who I was and what I was exploring, and crawl through those bushes. It wasn't crawling through the bushes, it was going through phantom toll booths and things like that.
Or ninja.
So, yeah, I think there must be an element of that.
Yeah, being a ninja and being able to. Yeah, and I have a mentally handicapped stepson, and he would say, like, he loves all of the, superhero books. And I remember Jason saying one time, I love superheroes because they don't have seizures and they don't have brain damage like I do. And he said, one day when I get to heaven, he goes, I want to be a superhero where I don't have my brain seizing anymore. And so that's just so profound. So I really believe sometimes when we can engage in story fantasy worlds, it takes away from that pain of reality of being alone and not connecting and not feeling like we fit in and not feeling like we belong in the world, Bryan. And I think so many young people today feel that way. And many times they walk through life with masks on and no one knows the pain they're really going through.
And this is something I'm mindful about as I encounter others. You don't know what someone else is experiencing. So many of our disabilities are invisible. And I was leading a conversation this morning, and it was at a purely business, rather prosaic level of, well, when you're writing a memo via email, how do you make sure that it can be read well by a screen reader? How do you, what should you do about formatting if your inclination, as mine had been for many years, I'm going to put in bold and red letters and a yellow highlighted background someone's name if I'm calling them out as having a particular task due by a particular date. And we change our behaviors because now we're more mindful of folks who have these invisible disabilities. My lunch partner yesterday, you wouldn't know from just looking at her that she had been in a horrific automobile accident not too many years ago. She doesn't usually use her wheelchair. You don't necessarily see her cane if you're just catching her for a moment. But there's all these things that people carry around, many of which aren't even as visible as a cane. And you don't know who has trouble hearing, who's carrying around the fact that a good friend just passed away or is in the hospital, or that their dog got lost and they can't be found. We're all carrying something. I feel very fortunate that I have been challenged less than many people I know across my life with god-awful things.
But you mentioned a really key point today, and that was your daughter. And me being a mom, nothing's harder in life, I feel, than seeing our children struggle in any dimension. And so, your burden may not have been as much, there was drug or alcohol addiction and blah, 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 but the burden of, feeling bullied, and then the burden of a daughter who has this anxiety, depressive disorder with OCD, it puts it, you start questioning yourself as a parent. Did we do something wrong? Did we miss something? You go through all of that stuff, even when, many times, no, it wasn't, it's just life. But struggling with a child is so hard, and because you want nothing but the easiness and blessings for your kids to have.
This is why I feel our son had struggles too, some of which came about because my wife and I were spending so much time, attention, and honestly, money too, on our daughter. We saw our son, who presented as capable, well-adjusted, etc., as we didn't outwardly, explicitly say, it's okay, we can go light on him because we're too busy parenting her. But that is partly the way in which I think he interpreted the fact that we were spending so much time with his sister, doing things that at a younger age he didn't fully understand. He just saw absence rather than presence. Mm-hmm. And we only found out as he got into his adult years that he had found his ways of coping too, did some things that were arguably stupid, like kids do, and potentially dangerous, is now, without having hit the stereotypical rock bottom, has chosen a fully sober life and is making us proud in a wide variety of ways, both for his own self-discipline and control, and for the fact that he's deeply involved with a couple of sponsees through the program, and is a leader in the volunteer side of pulling things together across the Seattle area. But you miss certain things as a parent too, and you only find them out later. And
right, and
here we are. We didn't struggle with him. We weren't part of his journey for that struggle, and we feel fortunate, if you will, to have had the opportunity to now be included as part of his lifelong commitment, and watching him be the person that he was appearing to be for so many years when he was really hindering himself.
Well, thank you. And most parents don't know this, but I really learned it in treatment, is the sick child, as they call it, the sick child, starts to thrive on the attention. And so they love to relapse over and over and over again because they're getting all the attention. So that one child that was I'm going to call it the sick child, the OCD child, once they see, wow, mom and dad are giving me all the attention, it's very hard to want to get well because you're getting all of this undivided attention. And so we saw that quite a bit in the recovery community for eating disorders. Why were these girls and guys continuously relapsing? Because mom and dad would come back and see them in treatment, and then the other children at home hated their siblings so much because they got all of the attention. So therefore, then the other child tried to say, well, what if I get sick too? Will I get the attention that my sister's getting?
And again, part of my, I guess, good fortune, while I have seen other parents struggle with this with their kids, the kid who continually relapses. I have a friend from some years back who lost one of his twins to an overdose, and relapse after relapse after relapse. I guess at one level there, but for the grace of God go I. On the other level, somehow that wasn't the pattern for our daughter. We stripped away the OCD. We were left with the anxiety. She was left with the anxiety. We all dealt with it together, taking these CBT and DBT classes and learning new coping and response skills. And maybe it was just the age at which it happened and her brain continuing to develop into an adult brain. Certainly it was some amount of her learning new coping skills. But she's now a more than fully functioning adult, and the relationship that she enjoys with us and that she and her new husband, still have with our son. I feel very lucky that all three of our kids, the two who were born to us and the one that our daughter brought into our family, they get along beautifully with each other and with us. So, here again, I feel like I am pretty much the luckiest SOB on the planet. So
let's divert to your wife. So Sharon, you said Sharon?
Yeah, yes.
So where did you and your lovely wife meet? And I know you said you've been married for many years.
Yeah, Sharon reminded me on Valentine's Day this year that 38 years ago, in the first year that we knew each other, neither one of us were dating anybody, and she invited me, her good friend Bryan from the office, she had bring a friend to exercise night at I'm going to date myself, 38 years alone dates me, but at a jazzercise class. And so I said, sure, I'll go with you. We'll grab dinner afterwards. Something. So we met at my first full-time permanent job after college. I finished college. I went back from the East Coast to my native Los Angeles, where I had grown up. Ended up getting a super job with the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. The only problem was the Olympics ended, and suddenly I was out of a job. And I had friends who were getting married back in Washington, D.C. I bought a one-way ticket, figured I can be unemployed on either coast, but I'll be with friends if I'm back in D.C. And was kind of over the Los Angeles area. And went into a magazine that was publishing in the computer industry off of Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. The assistant publisher, this woman, Sharon, was sick of selling the ads. She didn't consider herself a natural salesperson. It was by far the least favorite part of the job that she had. And she impressed upon the publisher, we would do better if we had a full-time sales rep. And that's what I got hired to do. There were 4 of us on the staff who were young. There were another half dozen who were older, like Vietnam vet era type folks. And the 4 of us formed a really close bond. After a year of being pals, Sharon left the company and went off to law school. We stayed in touch. We continued to see each other when she was back in town. After her 3 years of law school, she returned to Washington, D.C. to a great lawyering job the same month that I went off to grad school and got a business degree. But during those 2 years while I was down in North Carolina, stayed in touch. We would get together with the old pals whenever I was in town. If she was throwing a party with her housemates, I would be invited, and vice versa. And then around Thanksgiving, the year that I had returned to D.C. with my first postgraduate school job, we made a plan to get together, do dinner and a movie the Friday after Thanksgiving. By this time, we had known each other and been good friends for 6 years. And something about that evening, as we finished the evening and I took her back to her place and dropped her off, as I drove away, I was scratching my head thinking, that felt different. And she was walking into her apartment thinking, I felt different. 2 days later, we talked about it, and we've been together ever since.
Wait a minute. You didn't do the movie scene. You got in your car, she got in the house, and then you said, what's wrong with me? I'm going to get out of the car and go knock on that door and say, I love you. I want a kiss. See, I had to finish.
A little too much drama there, but it would have been the perfect. it would have been the perfect split screen of, he's in the car driving home going, huh? And she's sitting in her apartment going, hmm? Anyway, yeah, so we started dating. We started dating at that point, and a few years later, engagement, and a year and a half after that, wedding. And here October will be 30 years we've been married. I think that I know that Sharon is the first person I dated who was, I dated some smart people. Sharon was unequivocally smarter than I was. She laughs at my stupid jokes. She is detail oriented where I am big picture oriented. We complement each other nicely, and we are very companionable. I'd rather go grocery shopping with her than go do something conventionally exciting with nearly anybody else on the planet.
That's amazing. So share with the audience what you're doing today, and then I'll show them your bio so that they can see how to connect with you.
I bring more love into the world professionally. I do it by working with companies that need to get closer with their customers. Sometimes they have a legit problem with customer retention. Sometimes they don't, but they just want to continue to build stronger relationships between their sellers, their account managers, their customer support folks with their customer base so that they can improve retention, improve referrals. But one way or another, by teaching great communications skills and then helping build and run programs around customer loyalty, customer listening, and such, I help companies get their customers to fall in love with them, building great relationships between brands and the customers that they serve. Sometimes those customers are actually the employees or their business partners or referral partners or something like that. But one way or another, if it's important to connect with an audience and make them say, I care about this organization's success and they care about mine, that's where I show up.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to pause for just a moment here and bring up your bio. So this is how you can reach out to Bryan. His website is the number 3 CCOMMS.com. So you can go to that and connect with Bryan and hire him to be your connection, love connection, to bring about more just team building at a company instead of division. That's what comes to mind with love and grace. So Bryan, it's been a pleasure. Bryan and I met in Marty Dickinson's speakers network, and so he and I get to meet and see each other on Wednesdays, which you guys could join us if you'd like to learn more about speaking. Connect with, if I say it right, Marty Dickinson. Is it Dickinson?
That's it, Dickinson.
My brain's going numb here. Speakers, what's it called? Speakers
Speak Live.
Speakers Speak Live group. And anybody can join it. It's fabulous. We meet so many amazing people. And that's how I met Bryan. So Bryan, I look forward. I think I'm going to miss again. I keep missing Wednesdays. I got to go for some.
You've been traveling a lot. You have a rich, full life.
Yeah, and I hate it when I miss it, but I know this Wednesday I definitely am going to miss it again. I'm hoping next week, the following week. But everyone, please continue to watch The Connection Show and reach out to Bryan. We're going to end, Bryan, with one message from, and this is something, when you play this back, Bryan, listen to this for your daughter. It's an amazing company that I found. It's called Amari Global. And the owner of the company, Hip Train, was a multimillionaire who owned his own tech firm in California. He had 5,000 employees, and he worked so many hours, he ended up becoming an alcoholic. He went to treatment, and they wanted to put him on antidepressants, and he refused. When he got out of treatment, he swore that he would spend the rest of his life doing everything he could to help the mental health of our nation. And so he found the best biochemist, pharmaceutical biochemist person, and he sold his company and started Amari Global, which Amari means love, and since you are into love connection, and it's called Amari Global, the mental wellness company. And their first year out the door, they won the Nutra Awards for the best finished product out of 8,000 manufacturers for gut-brain health, which when that is synced together, brings down anxiety, depression, and they actually had a beta test with some PTSD veterans in the Northwest who, after 6 months being on those products, their depression and anxiety went down 66%, and they're all organic vitamins. So let's listen to Amari Global, and then we'll end. Everyone, thanks again for joining us. Bryan, stay on the line as we end, and we'll say goodbye to you off air. But thank you guys for joining the Connection Show.
Jill, thank you. Listeners, thank you.
Amari Global is the mental wellness company. In 2018, Amari won the Nutra Award for the world's first award-winning gut-brain axis nutrition system for their flagship product, the Fundamentals Pack. Clinically proven to increase good bacteria in the gut and incredible benefits. Amari means love, and there is love in every bottle. Mental health matters, and Amari is the mental wellness company. Prepare your body's gut microbiome for optimized mental wellness with a reboot and get yourself back to feeling joyful and motivated with mood. Round out your daily nutrition with GBX food systems. Crush your daily to-do list each day with Edge. Support your digestion and immune system with digestive, probiotics, omega, and Vita GBX supplements. Fuel your mental edge with our Mental Fitness Pack. Feel like your best self with the Happy Hormone Pack. Unlock your brain's potential with happy neurons with the Happy Mind Pack. And combine these products for an ultimate day with the Happy Juice Pack. For weight loss and energy, order the Transformational Pack. Our Kids Pack is the first comprehensive mental wellness pack for kids and teens. For a complete mind and body nutrition system, get your kids these today. Begin your wellness journey with Amari's Starter Pack and save. Start with the Entrepreneur Pack if you're serious about making an impact on your mental, physical, and financial wellness. Launch your Amari business with all our top products, packs, offers, and save. Help others achieve overall wellness too and gain financial wellness. Become a mental wellness partner today. Shop now and save. Sign up today by going to our website listed on this page. Thank you for joining us on The Connection Show. We'd appreciate your support. Please go to either our Patreon or our PayPal page to support our show. We love our podcast guests and social media subscribers, so you don't miss any of our shows. Go to our website today at braveheartworkshops.com and our Contact Us page. Click on all our social media links and subscribe to and like all our pages. Our affiliate partners, thank you for your support. Go to our affiliate partners page on our website and order from them today. They're offering discounts when you mention Braveheart. Click on their website links to order from them today.